Hey physicists, in your reading you found that acceleration is the rate of change of velocity, or another way we could express that is our change in velocity divided by our change of time, or how quickly the velocity is changing. We can also express that as our final velocity minus our initial velocity over our, want to be fancy about it, we can call our final time minus our initial time. Let's take a look at what that might look like in a graph. Now this graph is velocity on the y-axis, time on the horizontal axis. Let's say that's my change in velocity over some period of time. And I want to look at, hey, what's the rate of change of that velocity, also called acceleration, over this time interval. Does it keep disappearing? There we go. Hey, so I want to look at, that would be my initial velocity. This is my initial time. My final velocity and my final time. Okay, so this value here is my change of velocity, and this value here is my change of time. I've expressed this a couple of different ways, and that'll help you with your problem set. Now, so this is most often expressed as our final velocity minus our initial velocity divided by time. Remember, in physics, when we're talking about time, we're usually talking about a time interval. But let's say my question was asking about time. Okay, by a little bit of work with algebra, I could multiply each side by time, divide each side by acceleration. I cancel my times, I cancel my acceleration. I get this expression for time, or my change in time, is my final velocity minus my initial velocity divided by acceleration. Okay, that'd be if I was looking for time. Maybe I'm looking for something different. Maybe I'm looking for the final velocity. Get that, there we go. A final velocity. I could rearrange that now. Hey, let's go ahead and we'll multiply each side of this by A. So I find out that my acceleration times my time is equal to my final velocity minus my initial velocity. Hey, that's actually equal to my change in velocity. So that might be another important equation here. But we are looking to isolate just one of these. Let's see if I add my initial velocity to each side, do a little rearranging, I could get this relationship. My final velocity is equal to my initial velocity plus acceleration times my time interval. And I guess about the only other one be, maybe if I'm looking for my initial time. So my initial velocity is going to be equal to, here I'd have to subtract AT from each side, get that all by itself. It's going to be equal to my final velocity minus acceleration times time. Remember, that's my change of velocity. Hey, so really we've looked at our equation of acceleration, or the rate of change of velocity, in terms of a couple different variables. Let's go ahead and we'll just summarize them here. Okay, my acceleration is equal to my final velocity minus my initial velocity divided by time. Remember, that's a time interval. We could also express it as time is equal to my final velocity minus my initial velocity divided by acceleration. We can look at terms of another variable. Hey, my final velocity is equal to my initial velocity plus my acceleration times time. Remember, this value here is our change of velocity. So that makes sense, that my initial velocity plus my change of velocity is equal to my final velocity. And the one last one we can take a look at, my initial velocity is equal to my final velocity minus that change of velocity, or minus acceleration times time. And because all these are so helpful, I'm going to go ahead and box all these. You'll probably want to put these in your notes. Hey, and then just a last couple items we want to do. Hey, let's see if there's any words that help us describe what the final velocity or initial velocity is. Hey, if something starts from rest, that's a clue that tells us that our initial velocity is equal to 0. And if something comes to a stop, likewise, that tells us our final velocity is equal to 0. And maybe one last thing, if our velocity is constant, that tells us, hey, if we have no change of velocity, that means our acceleration is equal to 0. Okay, good luck on those worksheets, and try these out. They'll be a good resource for you.